What if the son that you raised, the boy that you were so close to, took to baseball tryouts, soccer league, everything, you guys were so close, and then years later you find out that he's not even your biological son? And then you find out deep deception that your wife did to you, and guys, I'm telling you, this one goes so deep. First of all, I want you to just imagine that you could find out this information. How would you act? Well, you're gonna see exactly how this person acted.
I don't know what to do. I've just discovered something that's turned my whole world upside down. I regret marrying my wife and trusting her all these years. Turns out she betrayed me in the worst way possible when I did nothing but love her. I'll explain my situation, so please give me some good advice. My name is Niall. I've been married to my wife Ally for over 5 years. See, Ally comes from a wealthy and powerful family, but none of it ever mattered to me. To be fully honest, I don't think we've ever used her family wealth to do something for ourselves. From an early age, my parents taught me to be self-dependent, and the only money that we have used has come from our own earnings. We have a 4-year-old son together, Steven, and he is the only reason I'm not jumping to divorce Ally. The love I have for him is the reason I'm writing here in the first place. When I first met Ally, I assumed she was a normal person like me because that's how she carried herself. She had no ego and still doesn't, at least from the side I've seen. She has never cared about how wealthy she is, and this is one of the many things that made me fall in love with her. She values hard work just as much as a person who comes from a poor family. Ally and I got along very well, after a mutual friend introduced us. And very soon we were dating, and a year after that I proposed and we got married. Later, we even had a very cute son together. Getting married to her was tough because her rich family cared a lot about their reputation. They took a long time to decide if I was the right choice, but in the end they had to let Ally choose who she wanted. All of them love Ally way too much to say no to her. Even if you asked me a month ago, I would have told you that I have the best life ever. Even though I've never really asked Ally's family for financial help, I can't just sit here and say that it's not a huge relief that they have our back. I love being independent and not asking them for financial help, but it does make a huge difference that they're there when and if we need them. So let me tell you, having a powerful and wealthy in-laws like that is a huge relief and a burden at the same time. I think it would be fair to say that it's a curse and a blessing. But the kind of person Ally is, she never made me feel like I was making a mistake marrying her. She was always different from her family, and she really cared about doing something on her own rather than depending on her family. I always loved that about her. I loved Ally so much that I never even doubted her. I believed her every word. No matter what the situation, I was never ever suspicious of her. This isn't biting me in the behind, because if I had been a bit suspicious, then I would not have wasted all this time, and I can't say for sure, but maybe I would have found out about this a long time ago. Currently, I feel like an idiot who kept getting tricked because he refused to believe he could be tricked to a person by someone he loved. I have a friend named James who has been telling me for years that my son might not be mine. Okay, so the thing is that my son Steve does not look like me at all. It's not like he was a different race or something, but he had none of my features. Again, this was not something that didn't happen. Sometimes kids don't look like their fathers, and I don't look much like my dad. But Steve did not resemble me at all. It was like my genes didn't really try at all, but I wasn't sad about it. I was happy that he resembled my lovely wife. The more Steve grew, the more it was clear that he was never going to look even a little bit like me. But once again, I never doubted my wife because I had no reason to. She had never broken my trust or done anything to make me suspicious. I loved her way too much to think about any of that. She would always act sad when somebody would mention Steve didn't look like me. She would tell me that he was going to have my personality because she wanted him to grow up to be the person like me. She always knew what to say to make me feel happy. I guess I was too easily manipulated, and she made full use of it. Me and James kept arguing because he believed that I needed to be sure Steve was my child, and I told him I am. Well, James has been an awfully good friend of mine for years, and I respect him a lot. He's always openly told me what he believed, and obviously he wasn't saying this for no reason. To him, it looked like there was a good chance that Steve was not my child. But I never listened. He begged me to secretly do a DNA test many times, but I kept telling him that I didn't need to. I loved and trusted my wife way too much to even think like that, plus I love Steve, and I didn't want to think that he was not my kid. But then, a week ago, I made the worst mistake ever. Ally was traveling with her family for a ceremony, and I took Steve on a day trip, and we have this fun little trip until he got sick out of nowhere. I got scared and took him to the doctor, and it wasn't anything serious, but he needed immediate treatment. While the nurses were doing that, I discovered that I could ask for a DNA test. I was in a dilemma because this was not the time for that at all. I felt bad doubting my wife, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw James screaming at me to do it. I kept thinking if I do this now, I can forever tell him that he was wrong and I was right. Even then, I had no doubt that Steve was my son. So I called James and told him what I was about to do. He screamed in happiness and told me that this was a better birthday gift than what I could have given him a few months ago. I then asked the nurse to do a test and she agreed. They took my blood and did the test, and yesterday morning I went to the hospital to get the results and for my son's checkup. Even when I was opening the envelope, I was confident that there was no way my son was not mine. But as soon as I opened it, my world turned upside down. Steve is not my kid. Not only did my wife cheat on me, but she also lied and tricked me into raising a son who wasn't mine. I couldn't believe it, and as I was driving home with Steve, I could not even look at him. I still have not been able to look at both Ally and him. How could she do this? Why did she do this? What do I do now? Are the questions I've been asking myself. I've not been able to sleep. I can't stop sobbing, thinking how she's made a fool of me. Guys, I've been put in a terrible position, and I don't know any way out of it. That's the main reason I'm writing here, to ask you guys, what do I do? Update number 1. Hey guys, it's been a few days since my last update, and I finally came up with a decision. I'm going to talk to my in-laws because I cannot bring myself to confront Ally. Every time I try, I get too scared to talk, so I feel like this is the best decision at this point. So I've thought a lot about what I'm going to do next. I want to thank you guys a lot for leaving me advice because it's helped. So, I saw a lot of people telling me that I should forgive Ally and let it go instead of making a huge deal of it. The thing is, as much as I want to, I cannot live with a cheater. There are only a few things that can make me think about leaving Ally like this, and murder isn't even one of them. Well, but cheating, it is, and I'm not even thinking about her tricking me into raising someone else's child. I mean, come on. Do you really think that I can forgive a person like that? The thing is, at first I wanted to find a way to forgive her. I love her and Steve, and I don't want to live without them. I just keep wishing that I would wake up and all of this would be a nightmare. But everything I do just reminds me that this is reality. After my last post, I kept thinking about confronting Ally as she's kept asking me what's wrong, what's wrong. Obviously, it was pretty clear that something was wrong, and then she first asked me. I told her it was work. I've had to keep making excuse after excuse so she doesn't get suspicious. One night she begged me to tell her what's going on, and I came very close to just that. But I stopped myself because Steve was right there, and I didn't want to tell him that I had stopped thinking he was my son. I haven't, and I still love him, but I'm confused. A lot of you also asked me if I told my friend James about it, and well, I had to. I didn't want to, but I had to. I didn't want him to gloat on top of my depression. Imagine being in my position and hearing, told you so. Wouldn't it make you mad? When we met, I was ready to punch him if he even said something similar. But as soon as I told James about it, he said that he was sorry and he wished it wasn't true. He apologized for forcing me to do it and putting me into a position. I told him it was, not his fault, and he smiled and said he was just being nice. Of course it wasn't his fault. It made me smile the way he said all that. That is the first and only time I've smiled since I found out about this. We spoke and he agreed that I should not confront her. Then he gave me a good idea that I should instead talk to my in-laws. A few of you also gave me this idea. For some reason, this feels easier to do than, telling Ally myself. So I've decided to do that, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. Update number 2. I believe I ended my last update from a few days ago telling you that I would let you know how it goes. Well, it went horrible, and you're not going to believe what my in-laws told me. They essentially gave me an ultimatum and insulted me. They treated me like I was a piece of a toy that didn't matter. I guess that's what I get for trusting rich and powerful people. So, as you already know, after my last update, I went to see my in-laws, hoping that they would give me some advice and help. but I was never expecting them to already know what was going on and threaten me instead of helping. I met with my mother-in-law and father-in-law was out, and I was told he would be back in a minute. I told my mother-in-law that I was always thinking of her as my own mom, and since I had lost mine, I wanted advice from her. She was happy to help and treated me with the same warmth that she has shown since I married Ally. I told my mother-in-law that I discovered that Ally had cheated on me and that even my child was not mine. As soon as I said that, her reaction changed and father-in-law also came in. Mother-in-law told him that I had found out about the thing and father-in-law smiled. He said he had gotten tired of playing dumb anyways, and I asked them what was going on and how they were so chill after hearing all this. They told me because I was the only stupid person in the family. They said that they already knew about this and didn't care enough to tell me. They didn't even believe that I was important enough to know about it. They actually thought of me as more of a caretaker for Ally than a hubby. They said although it would have been less messy for them if Ally had a son with me, it didn't really matter to them who was the father of the child. They didn't want Ally to marry me in the first place. They wanted somebody who had status and wealth and who could give her a good life, but Ally just refused to leave me and forced them to agree. My in-laws clearly did not care about me at all and said that they were happy that their grandkid did not have my blood. It made me angry to hear all of this. I then told them that I could not believe they were this heartless. They said that they would never let a peasant like me even enter their home if I was not involved with their daughter. I told them that I never wanted to be involved with a-holes like them either. Then they asked me what I was going to do. I told them that I was going to break off our marriage and move on from people like them. But this was not what they wanted. My in-laws actually gave me an ultimatum. They said that if I would need to forget any of this happened and go back to my life and have a child with Ally, if I really felt sad about Steve not being my blood. But I didn't need to confront her or leave her and make a mess. They said that if I did what they said, I would never have to worry about money again, ever. I told them I don't care about money and I never have. All I wanted was to live happily with my family, but now that was not possible. Ally was a cheater, and no matter how much I cared about her, I was not willing to live with her. My in-laws then said that I could just leave. But if I chose to do so and made their lives harder, they would make mine infinitely worse. They even said that if I divorced her, they would make sure that I would never get to see Ally or Steve, ever. They said that they knew I cared about Steve, even if I hated Ally. I told them they couldn't do it, and they said with money you can do anything, honey. Then they kicked me out, and I genuinely don't know what to do. I want to leave, but I don't want to cut my son out. I still want to see him, even if he's not my bio son. I can think of him as an adopted one, so please give me some advice. Update number 3. Just 2 days after what happened last time, I found the guts to confront Ally, and this is what happened. After my last update, I came back home confused. I had no idea what to do. The worst thing about all this was that no matter how I looked at it, I was going to lose everyone. At this point, I knew that there was no way I was going to keep living with Ally, and I had to confront her and get it over with. I was scared, but I had no other option. Yesterday, Ally came back home from work and found me crying in the bed. I sent Steve to our friend's place for a few hours, and she asked me what was going on and started sobbing. She begged me to tell her the truth, and I stopped crying and asked her if she was ready to hear it. It made me mad to see her act like, well, she cares about me when she's made it perfectly clear that she doesn't. I told her that she could drop the act, and I knew the truth. She said that there was nothing she had hidden from me, and there was no act going on. So I took out the DNA test and threw it at her face. As soon as she read it, her eyes got bigger and she started saying she could explain. I asked her if the explanation included science fiction stuff like cloning or aliens, because otherwise, the only other explanation would be she cheated. She stayed silent, and I felt like I was burning up from the inside. I wanted to tell her 1,000 different things, yet I could not produce a sound for a few minutes. All I could ask was why. What had I done to deserve this? Was it because I was not as rich as her? Then why marry me? Why go through all this if she never loved me? Those were the things I asked her, and all she could do was cry and say that she didn't mean to do any of it. At that point, I got up and told her I was done, because unlike her, I was not doing this to cause her pain. As I was leaving, she grabbed my hand and asked me to hear her out just once. After that, she promised she would do whatever I wished. I can't tell you if this is the truth or not, but I felt it was the truth. She tells me that she actually did love me and had never wanted to hurt me. Because if she hadn't, she would have fought all her family to marry me. But she did not make this mistake like this. Well, it was bad. After we got married, I was working hard to prove that I could earn good money, and she became lonely. At this point, she made the mistake of cheating, and she said that she felt really guilty about it to this day, and as soon as she did, she realized how badly she messed up and swore to herself to never ever do something like that again. Cheating made her realize how important I was to her. I think this line came out worse than what she was imagining in her head, because it just made me mad. It was like I cut your hand off, and said that cutting your hand off made me realize how important a hand is, and why I should never do it again. It doesn't even sound like the worst thing to say at this point. Anyways, moving on. She wanted to forget everything and move on, but she ended up getting pregnant and was not sure if the baby was his or mine. But she didn't want to take the chance and told her family about it and said that she wanted to get rid of it, but they forced her not to. Well, firstly, they manipulated her and made her believe that it would hurt me to find out that she did that if it was my baby. Also, I would never find out if it weren't. By the time she did a DNA test, she had already gotten way too close to the baby and didn't want to lose it. The family wanted a grandchild and didn't care how they got it. Also, they were scared that if this thing came out in the open, it would ruin their reputation. Still, Ally wanted to tell me the truth, but her family scared her. After that, I told her that her explanation could not make what she did okay. She told me she knew that, but was hoping that I would forgive her. She told me our son did nothing wrong. I corrected her and told her Steve was not really my son. She had just used me to raise him because she felt like it, and before she could say a word, I left and have been staying at James' place. Guys, at this point, I'm telling you, I don't know what to do. Update number 4. I've thought about this for over 2 weeks, and I know what I'm going to do now. In fact, I've already taken the first step, so let me explain. After my last update, I went to my in-laws because I wanted to tell them that I was going to do something, and also because I wanted to see if they would be willing to tell me everything that happened. See, what I didn't mention last time was I recorded everything Ally said to me. And I don't know why I did that, if I'm being honest with you. I don't know at all. But I just felt like I should have proved what happened. I wanted my in-laws to admit the truth too, so that if I needed to be, I could use it. They had already made it clear that they were going to use every means necessary to destroy me, if I didn't do what they wanted, and now I just needed that on recording. So I put a small little camera, Amazon, an audio recorder in my jacket and went to see them. I told them that I confronted Ally and she told me the truth. They didn't even try to fight it and accepted that everything Ally had said was true. They knew that I could not do anything to them, and I think this overconfidence is going to be their downfall. When I told them that I was not going to stay silent and that I was going to divorce Ally, they get angry. Father-in-law told me that if I chose to do that, they would do everything in their power to make my life as miserable as possible. They also reminded me that nobody I got to would be able to help me because they pay most of the people around us. I told them that some things cannot be won with money and power, and they said that this was not true, because this was not one of those things. They threatened to destroy me and tried every tactic they knew to scare me. But the more they said, the more it made me happy, as I just got more evidence to use against them. After that, I told them that they could do whatever they wanted and left. And guys, I went home, packed my bags, and did the hardest thing ever, which was say goodbye to my boy. Because I have no idea if I'll be able to see him again after this, no matter what I do. My in-laws and Ally will have the power to decide that. As I've already mentioned several times, Steve was the only person holding me back, so I decided I couldn't do it anymore. And as much as I want Steve to be in my life, I would rather live apart from him than with Ally and her stupid, manipulative family. Final update. Hey guys, it's been a few months and I apologize for the late update. A lot's gone down, so let me get you in check. A few weeks after my last post, I filed for divorce and immediately my in-laws tried to ruin my life. They tried to get me kicked out of my job and tried to influence other things, but I was already prepared for it. I released a video about everything they did to me. I even painted Ally as a victim of their manipulation. I didn't want her to get the heat for anything, and to my surprise, the video got shared a lot and picked up a lot of buzz. The local news could not get enough of it and even spoke with me to write an article about the manipulative family of mine. It ended up going even better than I thought was possible. Because of this negative press, their manipulation didn't work, and they could not do anything to me. A lot of people were in my support, and this made my life really easy. The only tough part was the fact that I was going to lose Steve. I love my son, biological or not, and I knew that my in-laws would never let me get custody. They did try their best, but Ally for some reason supported me and helped me get joint custody, meaning we both got to spend the same amount of time with our boy. The court asked me if I cared about him, and I said he was my son no matter what. Mostly because of Ally, it was possible for me to get custody of him. So after that, I thanked her, and she told me it was the least she could do. She said that she knew I was not going to forgive her, but she begged me to at least keep in contact with her. But I told her that I would never, because I need to move on. I told her that, honestly, I didn't want to see her. She understood and has not called me since. She only talks to me if it's anything related to my son. Because of the stunt I pulled, my in-laws lost out on a great business deal, which made me so happy to hear. This caused a huge amount of loss, and they were angry. But that wasn't even the worst part. After Ally lost me, she blamed her family for manipulating her and chose to cut them off. She also refused to let them see Steve, and this made them angry even further. A few weeks ago, my ex-father-in-law calls me and told me that I wasn't going to get away so easily. He also threatened that he would make sure that I would never be happy again. I asked him to do his worst. I think he just wanted to scare me, but I don't care at this point. Now I'm focusing on loving my son and moving on, and it's going to be tough, but I think I'll be fine.